Well, it really starts from the very beginning. When you get to your car, you need to make sure the car seat is in the car. And that probably would be your partner's role. Often get asked, what do I need to buy for my baby? And interestingly, it's very little, because babies really need love, time, breast milk preferably, and to be held a lot. If you don't have much, that's okay. But one thing we don't negotiate on is a good car seat. And for a newborn baby on the way home from the hospital, we need to make sure that you know how to use that seat and that your baby's put in correctly. So that's the first thing. When you get home, first I must say, you'll probably drive slower than you've ever driven, and you definitely will be sitting in the back with your baby. They don't have any neck control. They're often sitting in that car seat like this. And so we'd like you, if there is perhaps two little pieces at the side, you often get a little, almost like a little pillow. If you don't have, you can make a little one with a towel, just to lift slightly so that they're not totally closed in on themselves. When you get home, you're going to take the baby out the car seat. We don't want them to stay in the car seat too long. And you're probably going to put baby into their cot. Make sure you've got a nice firm mattress. Put baby on their back. If it's a hot day, don't overdress. The rule often is what you're wearing plus one. So maybe a light cotton blanket if it's a hot day. If it's cold, you often need to check the temperature of the room, and 18 to 20 is a good temperature, but bearing in mind the temperature dips in the early mornings. So the first night, you're probably going to spend with your baby in the room with you, and you're going to be doing a lot of feeding, especially if you're home from hospital day 3, day 4, which is where the babies tend to suddenly start waking up and wanting to feed. This can be quite overwhelming because the first few days in hospital, they seem to be sleeping quite a bit. With them sleeping quite a bit, you weren't too concerned because you were in hospital and you were able to give your colostrum and you know that everything was going well. Now that you're home, there's certain things you need to look out for. You need to check that the nappies are wet in between feeds. And this is the most important thing. Most parents phone me to ask, how do I know my baby's getting enough? Or what do I do if the nappy's dry? You need to feed. If you're in doubt, feed. Breastfeeding is not a scientific, factual sort of manual-based thing. You never know exactly what they're getting. But we do know that what goes in must come out. So a baby who's feeding well will probably settle well between feeds, and the nappies will have wet, will be quite heavy with urine, and we expect 3 to 4 poos a day in the beginning. So that poo that starts off very tar-like and meconium, it's almost sticky. You would probably want to put Vaseline on the first 2 or 3 days so you can wipe it off easily. And if you have a little boy, you need to wipe under the testicles. If you have a little girl, you need to check that it's not stuck between the vulva. You do need to clean really, really well. And that's not excessive cleaning with wet wipes. You could even just use boiled cooled water with cotton wool if you're concerned about the effects of the wet wipes on the skin. Your first few days at home are really going to be about changing nappies, feeding baby, and resting in between. You shouldn't be doing any big events or social things in the first at least 6 weeks. It's really a time of learning what your baby needs, and you will have that instinct. You need to trust that you'll know what to do. It is not found on the internet. You've got to know in your heart that when the baby starts moving around, smacking its lips, looking for you and rooting, which is a word for wanting to feed, you need to pick your baby up and offer the breast. And if you're not breastfeeding, offer a feed, because more than likely they'll want to feed 2 to 3 hourly. Note that we say newborn babies feed 8 to 12 times in 24 hours, not necessarily set times. They like to cluster feed in the evening. You are going to be busy between 6 and 9, feeding sometimes on, off, on, off. The way that you know your baby's doing well is they've got a lovely color, they're not yellow, Some babies are jaundiced. Some of the babies will have very yellow eyes and yellow skin, and they're not pooing too much. The output's not great. Then you would be concerned. We'd want you to speak to your pediatrician or nearest baby clinic. There's a possibility that they'd need to have just a small skin prick of the heel to check what their bilirubin levels are. And bilirubin is really just a waste product that the baby needs to excrete. The more you feed, the better. That is the most important thing in the first couple of days. Feeding, nappies wet in between, 3 to 4 poos a day, sometimes more, sometimes less, but we like to see poos daily. Soft poo, and it will change to a yellowish color. If it was black in the beginning, it will go a lighter brown, sometimes greenish tinge, and then yellow. So a healthy breastfed baby's stool is a mustard yellow color with a very soft consistency. So firstly, just to mention, when you're changing the nappy, you do need to check the cord. And that cord that's hanging there does look a little bit frightening, and many of the parents are scared to actually move it to clean it. We still do use surgical spirits with the ear buddy dipped in. We don't want to get any surgical spirits on the baby's skin. It might go red and break it down, so that it can be very, very sore. We use that surgical spirits only where the cord goes in to the belly button area. We clean really thoroughly, and that can be with each nappy change in the first few days. A lot of people are using a type of powder that is a wound healing powder to help dry it out. That's also fine. And some studies have shown that even just cleaning with water. But the protocol today is still to check that cord with each nappy change, see that it's cleaned, and have a look for any redness around the cord, or if the baby obviously has a temperature, a very young baby, we would be concerned about. And if that area is red and yucky looking, if it looks like there's a discharge that smells horrible, you need to then go immediately to your baby clinic or speak to your pediatrician or doctor. The cord should fall off where the belly button is at about anywhere from day 5 to 10. Might be a bit later for some people, but generally it starts to dry out and it looks like it's hanging by a thread. You should never pull it or cut it, as tempted as you might be. So it's best left to fall off on its own. When it comes to bathing your baby, you don't need to excessively clean your baby. They're not dirty. Their skin is very sensitive when they're newborns. I would really suggest that if you get home with your baby that first day and it feels a bit overwhelming to bath, wait till the next day. Every second day, no problem at all. But you do need to make sure that the areas under the neck and all the folds are dry and clean, because if poo gets stuck in the folds here, in the genital area, or milk gets stuck sort of around the neck where the little folds are, they can get very sore skin. It can go from a rash very quickly into a fungal infection. So we want to protect those areas. So just gently check underneath, and when you change the nappy, that you've cleaned in all those areas. When it comes to bathing a newborn baby, it goes without saying, you never leave your baby alone. You always watch your baby around water, and your toddler and your child. A baby needs to go into water that's not hot and not cold. If you're not sure what this is, just feel the water, and if it feels comfortable, you don't move away quickly, it should be fine for baby. Not too hot, not too cold. They do lose heat quickly. They cannot easily conserve their heat. So when they're naked, you want to make sure that the bath room is warm. You want to see you've got all your towels nearby. And when you put them into that little bit of water, because you'll probably just run the bath, or if you've got just a shallow bath, or if you've got a sink that you can fit baby in, you might just put the water up to here. Or if you have a special baby bath that you've bought, you're probably just going to pick the baby up after putting some cream. Most of the dermatologists today, they recommend just a very mild emollient cream. No strong soaps or baby products that have preservatives in, mainly because the skin is so thin, and to protect it, we don't want to use overly harsh chemicals. You can put all the cream, whatever you're using, down the baby's body, gently massage it in, pick baby up, and place into the water, making sure that you're always holding the neck. They don't have much control of the neck in the beginning. They will get that strength later, but you need to be sure that baby's in, you rinse them really nicely and out. It should take a few minutes. It's not a long, drawn-out procedure. Babies don't know what expectations you have. They don't know the difference between day and night. Don't be too hard on yourself if in the first few weeks you have a baby that seems to wake up a lot at night and want to be fed and want to be held. They are still transitioning into our world. If they could stay longer in the womb, they probably would. So when your baby wakes up, they are telling you something. Their way of communication is by crying and alerting you to the fact that they need something. Always go to your baby. Always respond. You can never spoil a baby. Never. If your baby needs to feed, feed them. There is no strict routine for feeding. We have mentioned they digest breast milk in an hour and a half. More than likely, a baby waking often would like to feed and be close to you. Of course, you'd like to get into some kind of routine one day, and that's absolutely normal and acceptable to think that way. Many moms have to go back to work at 4 months. They're already thinking at the very beginning, what can I do to get my baby into a routine? Let your baby gradually go into that routine by doing similar things at similar times of day. Not forcing it, not making your baby do it, but when it comes to the evening at 6, 7 o'clock, start quietly unwinding. Let the house be a little bit quieter and start your bedtime routine, whatever that is, whether it's bath time and then a little story or a little song, perhaps some massage. Massage has been shown to be so beneficial for newborn babies. You can massage them after a bath. That can be your partner's role, and this will help them to understand that eventually this is what sleep time is. It's getting a bit darker, a bit quieter. This is what we're doing, but don't expect a routine in the first 6 weeks. It will take a couple of months to slowly get all of that in line with how you'd like it to be. And we all have different expectations. Many of us will consider a good night's sleep 8 hours and others 4 hours. Babies do wake at night to feed, and that's a normal response. You don't have a naughty baby. You're not spoiling your baby. They will wake up to feed in the first 6 weeks. Their tummies are small. They need that breast milk. So if you have a baby who's waking up to feed, do it quietly. Don't put all the lights on. Have a dimmer in your room, which is fantastic. And just lean over, feed baby, and put baby back with minimal fuss. So to help you get into routine, it's really about making sure that your day and nights are different. That nighttime is a time of rest and quietness, and daytime you do your usual things around the house. You don't have to tiptoe. Babies need to be held a lot. If you could hold them, you can never hold them enough. So you're doing nothing wrong if you're baby wearing, or you might be told not to do it too much, they'll get into a habit. Or you may be told it's not good for you to put your baby to sleep, they need to put themselves to sleep. That is a developmental milestone that comes much later. When we speak about the first 6 weeks, we're really talking about, look, newborn babies' brains are growing up to 80% in those first 1,000 days. We are laying down a foundation for life, for lifelong attachment and lifelong relationships. So if you need to hold your baby to help them get to sleep, that's absolutely fine. It will have no adverse effects. The concern comes in when a mother is absolutely exhausted and the baby will only sleep on her and won't go down without being rocked, held, or assisted. I would urge moms, if they're going through this experience of a baby who won't settle on its own, to see a lactation specialist, to have a look that the baby is growing well. It doesn't have to be a lactation specialist. It can also be a trusted clinic sister or midwife or doctor that they really respect and enjoy talking to, that will listen. Go to someone that will listen and find out if something's being missed. Because a baby who's fed well and held and all of their needs are seen to They had their bath, they've been massaged, they've been loved, you've done everything right to your knowledge, that isn't settling, maybe have an underlying medical condition which is treatable. So a baby who is very hard to put down, that has severe reflux, may be in pain, and the doctor would then check the throat to see if it's red. Or a baby who's always arching and squirming and unhappy after a feed, we may need to look at the mom's flow. When she's feeding, perhaps we need to change the position and lean back so that the baby can not have such a fast flow and be able to feed more comfortably. For a baby who is suddenly unhappy and crying, you need to rule out an ear infection or a sore bum if they have a nappy rash, or thrush on the bum can really burn when they wee or poo. When it comes to nappy rashes, we need to always be aware that baby's way of communicating is crying. They're telling us something. So we never want to ignore that. When we're changing a nappy, have a look and see if there's redness and use a really good cream that would treat that. Try not to put your bum creams on too thick. They don't allow the bum to breathe, and the nappy gets blocked and can't take the wee and poo away from the skin. So the acidity and the buildup of that sitting on the skin causes the rash. So changing the nappy regularly, and regularly is a big word because it can mean different things to different people, but changing the nappy between feeds is a good option. Then you know you've changed it, you've checked. There are times when it's going to be frustrating, and you feel in those moments when your baby's crying and you can't stop the crying, you really do feel incredibly inadequate. It is an emotional time. You want the best for your baby. Nobody wants their baby to cry. And if you've gone down your checklist, you've checked if they're fed, is the nappy changed? Are they okay? Do they have a temperature? And the normal temperature can be anything from 36.1 to 37.1 in that variation. So a baby who has a temperature, you would probably know when you pick them up and hold them against you. They'll feel hot. A baby who's unwell, all of these instances can lead to a very stressful situation. And if you cannot get your baby to stop crying and you feel like shaking your baby or hurting your baby, you really do need to either phone a friend and let them know, or phone your partner if they're able to come back from work, or wherever they are, a family member who you feel safe with. Phone any hotline if you know there's a postnatal depression support hotline or group in your area, the Lesh League, a clinic sister that you trust, anyone that you trust. Rather walk away. Your baby will not be harmed by being left to cry for a short while. There will be no brain damage, no harm, no lasting effect, but it will be harmed if you cannot control that frustration and end up taking it out on your baby. So please get help. It is very valid to feel this way and very human and very normal. Having a baby is the most life-changing, glorious, beautiful, empowering moment of your life. But it can also be very hard. And some parents find it so hard and don't necessarily enjoy it every single day. And that doesn't mean that you love your child any less. It just means that you're going through normal parenthood. In those times that you feel this way, please try and take some time out. Ask a babysitter or family member to come and take over. Try your best in the day when your baby sleeps to go and get some rest. You are important. You need to rest. Feeding your baby takes a great deal of energy from you. Caring for a baby is a full-time, 24/7 job. You do need some time out. Feeling tired post-birth can also have underlying health condition. Some women are anemic. Please check that you're not anemic. Take a good supplement, a good vitamin that's got all those things in that you may be lacking. And if you're not eating well, a nutritionist meal, take minerals, take omegas. It all comes through your breast milk and comes to your baby, so it can only be an advantage. If you are experiencing any of the signs of postnatal depression, rather seek help quickly. It is completely treatable, and there's no reason for you to suffer. Moms always ask me, Do I need to cut my baby's nails? And it is the most difficult thing to do, because what happens is the baby's nail is often connected at birth to the skin. So when you cut the nail, it's very easy to accidentally cut the skin. I advise my moms to rather file the nails. If they're soft, to just gently peel them off, just very gently. And if the baby's scratching a lot, you could always put little mittens on. It doesn't suit all babies. We know that some babies are very tactile. They do need to use their hands to learn about all sorts of things, crossing over, perception, spatial depth, lots of important things. But they will learn that later. If you put mittens on to protect your baby's face for a short while, to prevent them from scratching and doing damage, then that's okay to do. But do try and get those nails a bit shorter, because you will find the baby will do a lot of scratching and it can easily get infected and inflamed. And on the note of scratching the face, you might notice a couple of weeks after you're home, your baby's beautiful face might have a whole lot of spots on. We call that infant acne. It's really just the transition of the mom's hormones coming out of the baby's system that change over, and it's completely normal. We do not treat infant acne. So those little spots on the baby's face are normal for babies. So please don't go and put creams and lotions and potions on. If it's very, very inflamed and looks a little bit infected, you must seek help, but it's rare that that happens. When your baby opens their mouth to cry, have a look inside the mouth and just make sure that there's no white patches, especially on the gums along the ridge here and inside. That could be a sign of thrush, especially if you scrape it and it bleeds or doesn't come off. A little bit of a white tongue is quite normal. We do see white tongues with the milk residue, and some moms are concerned. If you're worried, just pop into your baby clinic and just check that out. Baby's hair, they're born sometimes with a beautiful mop of hair. Other times they're still so beautiful bald. But just know that that hair is going to slowly fall out. And some of the babies have a bald spot on their head where they've been sleeping. This is okay. There's no brain damage, no problem long term. In fact, those babies who lose their hair often end up growing a really beautiful, luscious mop of hair. So please don't worry if that happens. When you take your baby home, the best thing that anyone ever told me is just take it one day at a time. Every day will be new, every day will be different. It's always going to be you and your baby, and you don't have to do any of it perfectly. There will be moments where it's going to be easy and moments where it will be so hard. Just know that you're surrounded by people who can help you, and it's always the strong thing to ask for help, not a weakness. So enjoy your baby, enjoy those precious times, make a beautiful baby book, fill it in, and you'll look back on it and smile.